Today on Fresh Corduroy, I'm joined by Tricia Mangan, a World Cup alpine ski racer whose path to the highest level looks very different from the one most people imagine. Tricia grew up skiing in Western New York, lapping a small hill in Ellicottville with her siblings, racing because she loved it, not because she was chasing the Olympics or the World Cup. She didn't go to a ski academy, didn't follow a prescribed development pipeline, and for a long time didn't even see herself as a professional athlete. Along the way, she skied for Dartmouth, stepped away from the U.S. ski team, and returned as an independent athlete on the World Cup circuit, and rebuilt her career around Super G and speed, the events that suit her best. In this conversation, Tricia talks candidly about development outside the system, learning to be intentional with limited training time, the mental grind of elite racing, and how she thinks about World Cup success versus the Olympics. It's a thoughtful, honest look at what it really takes to keep going at the highest level and why there's more than one way to get there. A side note, Tricia and I had some connection issues during our conversation, and the episode has been edited to remove those issues as best as possible. Finally, if you like Fresh Corduroy, I'd really appreciate a follow on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen. Now, let's get some Fresh Corduroy with Tricia Mangan. Tricia Mangan, welcome to Fresh Corduroy.
Thank you so much. I am super excited to be here.
I'm glad you could make it. Before we dive into the World Cup circuit that you're competing on and traveling around, let's start with the Tricia's skiing origin story. Where and when did you get started skiing?
So I am from Buffalo, New York, and I grew up skiing in a little town called Ellicottville, New York, and I skied at Hollymont, which is one of two mountains in Ellicottville. And yeah, I just grew up skiing with my siblings. I have four brothers, and then also a younger sister as well. And my mom was in the ski patrol and just kind of put us all in the race program, and we absolutely loved it. And I definitely think that the competitive nature of ski racing and the kind of quest for always getting better was what really attracted me to ski racing. But early on, I think, it was just really fun ripping around the hill with friends, and it definitely started as a social thing, and then very quickly, I just absolutely love racing, and that's kind of what took over.
And correct me if I'm wrong, you spent the majority of your early formative ski racing career at Hollymont. You didn't go to a ski academy. You trained there and sort of entered junior racing in Western New York. Is that right?
Yes. Yeah. So I will say my ski racing journey is definitely a little bit unconventional. One of the main things is that I never had dreams of being a World Cup or Olympic skier. I hardly even knew that the US ski team existed. I did know that I love skiing and that I wanted to be as best as I possibly could. And I did actually want to go to an academy. It wasn't really in the cards because it was quite expensive, and it wasn't really in the picture because it was just like, okay, we're gonna do ski racing in New York. But that is, I think, a little bit unique in that I was never really chasing this big goal. It was just always like, okay, how can I get better today for the next race? And how can I, beat my twin brother and all the boys that I'm racing against? I stayed in New York at Hollymont until I made the national training group, which existed when I was in high school. And that was kind of like a quasi D team, and I made that my junior year of high school. So I just stayed in New York until I made the team, and then I was obviously on the team then.
And I mean, I looked back, pulled up the FIS app and looked. It looks to me like your third FIS race was a NORAM. So did you enter like two NJR races and then sort of hop into NORAMs at at that point?
So that was when I was on the NTG. So I did get incredibly lucky with the timing of I made the NTG for my first year FIS, and there was a whole group of us that I'm teammates with some of them still and good friends with most of them. And we definitely jumped right into NORAMs. I think our first year we did pretty much only NORAMs. I don't know. Yeah, I don't even remember doing an NJR race. I do remember going to NORAM in Loveland my first year FIS right before the Aspen World Cup and not getting a second run and being a little bit demoralized. So yeah, it was a bit of a rocky road there.
They threw you right into the frying pan.
Yeah, I think that Nino, Brian, and I don't remember if it was our first or second year FIS, but we had like the most FIS starts of any athlete in the entire world, either our first or second year FIS. So, yeah, it was definitely thrown into the deep end.
That's very different than today, where they cap the number of
Yeah, I know.
starts.
I know.
Yeah, actually, I think my son, his first year FIS, hit the cap. He at one point was at the, like you, top of the board. It was not by design by any stretch. It just
Yeah.
happened.
Well, yeah. I'm actually on a couple committees and we talk about the FIS first year limit, but I can assure you I was well over what the limit
Yeah,
is now. I think we were in like the 50s or 60s, so
yeah,
there was
yeah.
no cap.
I think it's still 25 for the first year and maybe
Yeah.
30 for year two, if I remember. I know they changed the rule relatively
Yeah.
recently. Yeah, so interesting that you were thrown right into the frying pan and started as much as you did. It's interesting. So you were on the NTG for a period, and competed at NORAMs among other things, and then at some point you went to Dartmouth, Big Green, right? So how did that? I assume there was a decision at some point. A, should I apply to college, and B, should I go versus pursuing the U.S. team and sort of the professional ski racer's life.
Yes. Yeah, we're really chugging along the timeline now. But so yes, as I said,
Back me
like
up if you need to.
no, I feel like there's always a lot to talk about with like growing up in New York in a small mountain and like how did that happen and how did that go? But we can move
No,
along as well.
actually, you're absolutely right. Like let's not skip over that because it is unique. I think, most people who want to race like you on the World Cup think they have to go to a ski academy and have to do PG years or at least, and among other things. And you obviously are proof that it doesn't have to be that way. So, I'm all ears. I welcome that
Yeah.
perspective.
Yes. Well, because I do talk to a lot of parents and athletes about this, and I think that my biggest takeaway is that there is not one way. It depends a lot on the athlete and their commitment and, their financial means and their location, their geography. Um, I think that Yeah, I think that the biggest thing I learned from growing up in New York was uh, actually a ton of things, but every challenge is also an opportunity to grow. And I mean, that sounds super cheesy, but like there's always silver linings. And one of the big one growing up in New York is obviously I had way less training time. But I learned to be like super intentional with my training, which I think is one of the very most important things as you're growing up as an athlete is being super intentional with your training. It's not just like, okay, I'm going to go take 10 runs. It's like, what am I working on and how do I get better? And so I think that I was forced to kind of think about that super young, which is a huge advantage. And that's just like one of so many things where it's it's kind of like what are your goals and why are you working towards them and like how are you going to get there? And that is how I approached ski racing when I was 14 and how I still approach it now. It's very much like process oriented. Like when I was a freshman in high school, I qualified for U16 nationals, and that was the first time they ever happened. And I didn't even understand that it was a race. I thought it was just like an assessment camp. So I went out there alone with, one pair of slalom, one pair of GS skis, no coach, no anything, and then got absolutely crushed. Um, and in that next year, it was like, okay, I want to go back to the C16s and I want to um, like do better. And that was like by far the biggest long-term goal I ever had, was like setting that goal at the beginning of the season. And then all that season it was like this was the goal and this is what I was working towards. But the approach was still like so similar of like, okay, how can I get better at my skiing today to get there at the end of the season? Um, and that actually, like, going to U16s that year, I then qualified for NTG. I got, I think, like second in the GS and or second in the slalom and third in the GS or something. So that was like a huge trajectory point, but it was kind of, I think, that more just my approach to ski racing um, that really, really helped me. And I think that you can do that anywhere. Obviously, like, had I grown up in Vale and had more days, it would have looked a lot different and my skill set would be different. But I think that's like the most important thing I learned, was that disadvantages can also be advantages if you learn to look at them that way, and kind of work with what you have. Uh, because like our sport is changing as well. Younger kids have access to skiing so much more now, which is hard. But at the end of the day, like, if you're willing to work hard and get creative, I think that you are capable of making a lot more happen than you think.
Yeah. And what did your training routine look like in high school in terms,
Yeah.
presumably Saturday and Sunday, but I would imagine a little bit during the week?
Yes. So I had amazing coaches at Hollymont that we skied during the week, like some Thursdays and Fridays. And I just went to traditional school, but I was actually homeschooled first through eighth grade, so I was very good at doing school on my own. And yeah, I was just able to work with the teachers and take extra time off. But yeah, it was mostly just like Thursday, Friday, some weeks, and then Saturday, Sunday. And we went to one Colorado camp for a week in November, and then we pretty much skied January, February, a little bit of March, which is crazy. Like, I didn't go ski in the summer ever until this, which is just
Interesting.
like wild to think about now. But yeah, I definitely took advantage of the time on snow I did have.
And I imagine you played other sports, that you were probably
Yes.
pretty athletic and active.
Yes, I did. I was a very serious soccer player. And then I did some rowing as well. That's actually the sport that the rest of my family does. And then um, sailing and a little bit of swimming was probably my least favorite. Then I was on the D team, or the NTG and D team, for a couple of years, which was very hard.
Yeah.
uh, but but like I said, like, I even when I was on the ski team, I still was like, or NTG, I still never ever saw myself as a professional skier. And I think that that's just because um like, I didn't know really anyone. There was no one in my life that like had this, was pursuing being a professional athlete. It was more that I just absolutely loved ski racing, and the more I could do it, the happier I was. But it was never like a professional path. So the decision to apply to school was like a no-brainer. And then Dartmouth was super exciting because it I knew that it had the flexibility of like potentially doing both. Um, and that's how I started. I started in the spring, after a, I think it was my um, yeah, second or third year FIS is when I started, and I did spring summer term. Um, and yeah, that was in 2016.
Got it. Yeah.
Yeah.
And did you go straight through, or were you on the, joke, there are some who take the 8-year plan. Were you fairly consistent in terms of graduating, or did it take a while given your back and forth with skiing?
So I did spring, summer, and then that next year was 2018, and that was when I qualified for my first Olympics. And then I went to school in the spring, just that spring. And then the next year was, yeah, after the Olympic year. And at this time, it's so funny to think about because now the US ski team is absolutely crushing it. But at this time, um, pretty much just Michaela was performing on the World Cup level in tech, and that's what I did. And it was um, me, Nina, and Razy Stiegler were on the team together. But in GS there was just like this one extra spot. And the year before, we I think Nina and I like kind of traded off for it here and there. Obviously in Killington there's more spots, but anyway, I like was just struggling in the World Cup and like not even close to it just seemed like impossible to score World Cup points to me in that time. And I was really struggling that year after the Olympics. And to me, like going to school in the winter was this opportunity to like take a step back from the World Cup, like gain confidence on the college circuit and NORAM circuit. And was like actually the best thing for my skiing. And then also burnt out is the wrong word, but I was like just mentally really, really struggling. And I was like, okay, I think going to school is going to have this like refresh. So I went to school that winter and skied for Dartmouth, um, which was not like very common to do both at that time. And I think that, yeah, that was just hard, the communication and the with the team. And so after that year, I didn't make criteria, and so I was cut from the ski team, which was very hard. But um, and then after that, I did a full year at Dartmouth, uh, and then and then 1 year as an independent athlete with Team X, focusing still on tech. And then I graduated, and then I switched to speed because I've always been best at Super G, but it's impossible to be a World Cup Super G skier without doing downhill as well. So after I graduated, I was like, okay, I really want to just try to do World Cup Super G. Like that's always what I've been best at and what I love the most. And so then I spent 2 years as an independent athlete on the World Cup speed circuit and then qualified back for the US ski team.
Okay, there's a number of things that you just talked about that I want to cover. One, you said, you were getting burnt out and you wanted to take a step back. I mean, that completely sort of self-reflection and self determinative, if you will, or were other people counseling you? I mean, I think that takes a fair amount of maturity to recognize that and to be able to make that kind of hard choice.
Yeah, well, one thing was that we only had one World Cup spot and Nina was just skiing better than me, so I knew that she was going to get it. So it's like, okay, I like don't want to go to Europe and like not, I'm not racing these World Cups, but I'm with this team, and that didn't seem like a good plan. And then also, um, like in the past, it'd be like, okay, like if you're not racing you can go home and train. It's like, okay, well I can't train in New York. So going to Dartmouth was like the best option for me in my mind. And yeah, I did talk it over with my coaches, and they kind of agreed. And like I said, it was such a different time in US ski racing because it wasn't like there were, this our team, the World Cup team, and then the Europa Cup team, and then like another team. um it was, yeah, there wasn't that much fluidity. So it did seem like the best option.
Got it. And I guess another point you mentioned is, you love Super G and speed, and you made this transition from the tech events to speed events. I've never been to Hollymont. I'm assuming it's not, you used air quotes earlier. It's not a huge mountain. How do you progress and learn about, speed events and then, fall in love with it, as opposed to the tech side of things?
Well, I happened to be the very best at Super G despite not training it, so it feels really good and is most fun when you're good at the event. So I think
Yeah.
that's why I loved Super G. And like even from like J4, um, I would always do well at Super G, and I think that um is a combination of things, but I'm just have like the turn radius of Super G just works very well for my style. And so yeah, that's why I've always liked Super G.
Um, and then you also touched upon the fact that the today's women's team is very different than what it looked like back then. And I mean, let's I guess talk about that. It's a super deep, at least from the spectator's perspective. It's deep. It's pretty cohesive. It seems like there's a lot of camaraderie and like you you're all having success, and as a result, it kind of like seems like a fun place to be. How is the team? Obviously, the speed side of things today. You can compare and contrast to past days, but I just talk about. It seems to the outsider that it's a great environment to be in right now.
Yeah, it is. This year especially has been awesome. I mean, everybody has been crushing it, which is rare and yeah, just really, really great. It is very different. I feel super lucky pretty much my entire ski racing career to have had amazing teammates. I don't think I could ski race if I had bad teammates because it's just you spend so much time with these people. They're literally like your siblings. When I was younger and on the D team, it very, very different. It felt more like because we were younger, these were like your best friends, and it felt like you were, on a school trip with your friends for like the whole winter. Then as you get older, like now I would say it is it is very different, like because of course you have some girls that you're closer with and not, but um and I think this is also part of like maturity and like this being more of our career than just fun ski vacation. um it's we all respect each other so much, and like we like there are tons of different personalities on the team, but ultimately it is really like a family because we're traveling together so much. And I think that I've talked to actually other nations about this, and they don't have the same camaraderie because if there are two people who are really different and don't really like each other, they just like don't talk or like don't get along and don't interact. And that's kind of impossible when you're traveling on the road as a US racer. So because of that, it is a really good environment, and I think that we've worked hard to get it to be like this. Obviously there are some people who are just like amazing teammates and team members and like glue to the team. And then some that maybe make it more difficult. But right now, everyone is it's yeah, it's a really great environment to be a
You
part
can't
of.
drop names as to who's making it difficult.
Well, I'm definitely one of them. No, I'm just kidding. No, but
Fair enough.
it is very much like sibling dynamics. Like we it's not all sunshine and rainbows. Like I'm sure many like we just yeah.
Yeah, no, I can understand that. But it seemed, yeah, again, from the outsider's perspective, and of course, it's the lens through which the outsider sees it is Instagram and the broadcast of the races and the finish corral. So it's curated, to say the least. So it's not all the
Yes. It definitely isn't. And I'm not trying to say like there's tons of beef on the team. There isn't. It is really, really awesome right now. Um, I just always caution like Instagram is not reality.
yeah.
Even when things are going so well, like there's so many things behind the scenes. Like I really tried to stay off of Instagram during the season because it yeah, I mean, I go on Instagram, but like I try
Yeah,
to
yeah.
I mean, I post on Instagram, but it's unrealistic. And even the people who post the hard parts too are probably posting it like after they got over it and not like when they're in the midst of going through a really hard time. So yeah,
And
just a warning to all the listeners, like it always looks better than it is.
Right. And what is how do you get over the difficulty, right? Like, how long does it take you to, you come down and you don't have a good run, you're, presumably upset. I remarked to somebody else that my wife collected bibs at the finish of a FIS race. Literally, like, she didn't grow up in ski racing, and she said everyone, including the winner, was upset. And she's like, "Does anyone enjoy this sport?" And so there's a fair amount of like frustration or whatever the emotions are when you don't feel like you've performed up your ability. Like, how do you deal with that, and like how long does it take you to get over it so that the team dinner isn't just a bunch of curmudgeons?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, you can tell your wife that my hypothesis is that part of the like alluring part of ski racing is that it never feels perfect, and we're like always searching and striving for like that next best run, and that is quite addicting. And especially if you're a competitive person, yeah, I think that's what feels so good, and that's actually what helps me get over disappointment too, is thinking about like, okay, if I didn't do well here, then like what can I do next time to not let that happen, and what can I do to better prepare myself. But there's definitely, everyone's different, of getting from the point of just like in the moment frustration and anger to, okay, like what's next and where are we going to go from here. But it's a lot easier when everyone's skiing well, so
Yeah,
that's been nice.
yeah. Everyone can pump each other up,
Yeah.
which is a good thing. Let's talk about your skiing. This so far this season. I mean, there's only unfortunately only been two Super G races. The last
Yes.
one just was canceled, but you've scored in both, and you're doing well. So at downhill, I think you've been open. I think in your Substack, and for anyone listening, your Substack is a window into your world. So I recommend people go read that. But let's talk about how do you think you're doing? Like, what are your highs and lows, I guess, for the season so far?
Yeah, it is quite sad that we've only had two Super Gs. I will start there, but that means that there are a few more ahead of us, which is exciting. Um, I feel by far the best I've ever felt about my skiing right now, which is awesome. It feels really, really good. I think there's a number of reasons I feel that way, or have gotten here, uh, which I'm happy to go into. But yeah, the results so far, St. Moritz was looking to be a very good run until I made a big mistake in the second last gate. And then Val d'Isere, was also solid. But yeah, it's Super G is really hard because the conditions matter so much, and the course breaks down very quickly in some races. Val d'Isere was one of them. So I'm really just trying to trust the process now, and now I'm finally in the 30 and just like working my way up the start list, which is very, very important, especially in Super G. So I think this is by far the best mindset I've ever been in definitely at this point of the season. And yeah, it feels really nice. I think that last year was maybe one of my hardest seasons mentally. Um, and I did a lot of work over the summer to get to a place this year, that was going to set me up for like the most success on race day. And I'm very proud that I've gotten there, and I think it's starting to pay off. So I'm excited to keep racing.
That's great. Okay, pretend you're a coach for a moment, and I'm a new skier. Look, I've been in all of one score downhill race in my career, which was a long time ago, and Super G was literally just being invented at the time, so I never raced Super G. What I've never seen or heard, speed in coaching. Like, what do you think about and what would you tell an athlete, coming into the speed, events to think about as they begin the training and competition?
That is a really, really good question. And I think that the hardest thing for me, specifically with downhill, was that you have these training runs and you're kind of told, like, don't go all out in the training runs, like, go, feel the course out. And
It sounds that by the time you're beginning to ski speed, the majority of the focus is on tactics and mindset as opposed to technique. That those fundamentals around, pressuring the outside ski, getting forward, like where you initiate the turn, those sort of fundamentals should be ingrained in the skier. Am I right, or am I sort of off on that?
um I am I I feel bad saying that's not correct, but maybe
You can.
maybe for some skiers. But I would say for most speed skiers, we're constantly working on our technique still. Like we do, and specifically for me, I need to ski so much GS. Like if I could only ski GS, or if I could ski GS like 50% of the time, I think that would be what would be best for me. Because if I'm not skiing technically well, I cannot ski good speed, period. Like I need to be skiing technically well. So it kind of depends on each skier how much you need to check in with the GS and technical side to maintain that. But no, we ski a lot of GS, and I think that I there are many girls on my team who benefit a ton from that. I mean, I think if you talk to Lauren Masuga or Allison Mullen, like those were both really good speed skiers at a younger age. And then when they came onto the team, they then developed their GS even more. And that's what pushed them to the next level. Um, so it is a balance, but the technical stuff is really important still.
And are there other techniques or things that are unique to speed, like pressuring after a roll to generate speed on the backside, or obviously tucking,
Yes.
position? So, like, what are some of those things that are unique to,
Yes.
to speed?
Yeah, there's tons of speed skills that are very important. Obviously, like jumping and moving over terrain is a very big one. And that's kind of just like repetition will help you with that. Being aerodynamic and getting like learning to tuck more and what that feels like at high speeds. Gliding is a very, very huge one. That is something I've struggled with a ton. I have a couple of hypotheses about gliding. Some people are very, very, very naturally good at it and don't have to think so much about it. Some people are not. Equipment is a huge part of it as well. And um, it is also like, it is a skill you can get better at as well. Um, I am a big believer that you should be focusing on your strengths and like improving your weaknesses. And that's actually like a huge difference in my approach this year versus last year. I was like focusing on my weaknesses and not my strengths. And this year I'm capitalizing on my strengths and just like working to improve my weaknesses, which is gliding.
And how does one think about gliding? Again, the inexperienced downhiller that you're looking at, always thought about gliding as riding a perfectly flat ski and actually having them sort of swim, if you will. But then again, that was several decades ago. So
Yeah.
the things that may have advanced.
Yeah, we have there are not so many courses or turns that you're like really going straight and riding a ski. Gliding to me is more the like if you're thinking about tuck turns, like really fast tuck turns. And I think most people would say that low edge angle is better. But I think the most important thing is carrying the energy from turn to turn. And whereas tech, you can generate speed in the turns using the fall line. And gliding, it's more about maintaining the speed and not losing it. And a little bit sometimes, depending where, like, if how steep or flat it is, you can also generate a little bit, but it's mostly about not losing the speed. So that's like a big differentiator. And yeah, it's about like putting the pressure in the perfect place, releasing it in the perfect place, transferring it from ski to ski. And it's different on different snow, it's different at different speeds. Um, yeah, and it's just being able to feel that perfect transfer.
Great. All right. So I'm ready to go
If
out
it
and race a
sounds
few
really
down.
hard, it is.
Yeah, obviously it is. You mentioned earlier that you have a certain style of skiing and that you look at other racers that have a similar style as, to sort of compare
Yeah.
and see what they're doing. Who would you liken to yourself?
Well, I would say I'm trying to be like them, but in general, I think the French girls all are like a little bit more technical focused on the speed side, so I watch some of them, but I like absolutely love the way Fede skis. I don't ski totally like her, but I like watch her for inspiration in line. But in general, it's more the skiers who are more like technical speed skiers than gliding speed skiers. Um, and it's just because like if I try to do what a gliding speed skier is doing, I'm never going to be as good as them gliding, and I can ski better turns than them on the technical section. So it just makes sense uh to watch the people who ski more like me, or I ski more like them.
Makes sense. And Fede is a great example of a much
Yeah,
more technical oriented
yeah,
racer. Yeah.
and she is like a massive inspiration for me because she wasn't always good at downhill and would lose be the very last person on gliding splits and last year she won World Cup downhills and I think that she's a very very good example of someone who's just capitalizing on their strengths like on the pitches she skis like literally no one else does on the speed circuit. So yeah, she's amazing to watch.
That's great. So I would be remiss if I didn't mention the Olympics. And you used you talked about it briefly before that you've already been to two.
Hmm.
This obviously is an Olympic cycle. The team is, as you pointed out, very different this year
Yeah.
than in years past. How does that play into your day to day and your season planning, if at all, or is it just if it comes, it comes? Like where does it fit into the grand scheme of things?
Yes. That is a good question. I have not done anything different this year in my approach because it's the Olympics versus any other year. Like it's funny because every single race I do, I'm trying to ski as fast as possible. I wish that there was like an extra reserve I had in there that I could like put into this my skiing now that it's an Olympic year, but that's just not the case. And I'd say the only thing is it's probably adding like a little bit more race day nerves because specifically for Super G, we've only had two races. We have like hopefully one more this weekend. Obviously, like that's just going to have more pressure because it's the last one before they pick the team. Um, but I'm really trying to not make it, uh, yeah, have me ski any differently because I think that, yeah, I already am trying to do everything I can. And if I tried to do more, that would be bad. So yeah.
Right. Uh,
But yeah, I feel so unbelievably lucky to have already gone to two Olympics. I'm trying as hard as possible to go to a third, but I'm also trying to remind myself like this is the best start to a season I've ever had. So just keep focusing on doing all the things right on a day-to-day basis, and um, we'll see how the cards fall. It's awesome to see all the other girls skiing so well. It's really, really exciting.
yeah. And where does depending on who you talk to, they say, look, I'll take World Cup success over going to the Olympics or Olympic success. Where does it? And then there are others who may say the opposite. Where does it fit for you? Is if you were to, I don't know, map out the best season and you had to choose, what would?
Olympic medal, World Cup globe. Unfortunately,
Exactly.
those aren't things that are totally realistic for me at this moment. Um, I think that the Olympics are honestly like such an amazing experience and such a reward for an athlete's hard work and um that's what is so awesome to be around this team. We're all so different. We all came from such different backgrounds. We have very different personalities, but everyone works hard. And it's a great reminder. I think it's easy to feel like, oh, I work so hard, like I work harder than everyone else. But that's just not the case. Everyone works hard and everyone wants it. And so I really think the Olympics are just like this very special reward. And of course, doing well at the Olympics is also amazing. It is more amazing if you're getting a medal, which everyone is going for. But
Right.
yeah, I also want to do well on the World Cup, and I think that that is going to mean just as much to me if I'm able to have that consistent World Cup success this year, even if I don't qualify for the Olympics. So that's what I'm focusing on and just trying to put my best skiing forward. So
Yeah.
that wasn't a very concrete answer, but
No,
they're both important.
no, I think it's reflective. They're both important. I think I'll call it the outsider in the sense of the non-ski racing fan would think the Olympics is it. And then the ski racing fan recognizes the importance of the World Cup.
Yes,
And
that
so, like,
yeah.
yeah, but that's from the fans, the
Yes.
different types of fans' perspective. And then there's the athlete's perspective, which is yet another view.
Yeah, that is really nice that you bring that up. I feel like I maybe even feel that a little bit more because, like I said, I don't come from a ski racing background. Like my extended family and friends and family are so unbelievably supportive and kind and amazing. But to them, it's like the Olympics. So of course there's this like extra bit of like, well, if I don't go to the Olympics, even if I'm having my best World Cup season ever, that looks like a failure to everyone else that doesn't get it. But like that's not why I'm ski racing. I'm ski racing because I absolutely love the challenge. And I've learned so much from ski racing and it feels so amazing to get to the end of a season and know I put in so much hard work and did everything I could to ski my best. And I know like what the different races mean. So I'm trying not to, but it is very challenging because to the rest of the world it's, just the Olympics. Um, so I try not to like get too worked up about from people's comments who maybe don't understand it. So that is really nice of you to point out. And it can be a hard thing to balance.
Yeah. Yeah. Look, I think people have different levels of knowledge and understanding of the sport and what the a measure of success is. And
Yeah.
it's not the Olympics. It's really about World Cup racing and sort
Yeah.
of a sustained performance over a period of time, which is interesting. I say that word, it harkens back to job reviews that I used to perform and talking about, in order to be promoted, you have to have sustained performance at the level that you want to be promoted to.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it has applicability elsewhere. Talking about reflection and perspective, you do write a lot on Substack, and I think it's rather in both instructive for the outsider to have a view into the world of a World Cup ski racer. But I wonder, why did you start it, and what do you get out of it?
Great question. I I started writing a blog a very long time ago, even before my Substack. And I did it as a way to share what I was doing with my family mostly and some friends. I try to be incredibly aware of just how lucky I am. And I think that sharing that is just like one very small thing I can do out of appreciation. But the reason I started my blog was when I was racing independent. I had so many people support me, and I am a very independent person. So even asking for help was really hard. And then, but this is what I always say about my years as an independent athlete, that it was the by far the biggest silver lining was to realize that I had this amazing community of people. And even though ski racing is an individual sport, it wasn't for me. Like, so many people helped me, and so my blog was a way to thank them and share the journey with them, and bring them along. And then as I've gotten a little bit older, I've realized that yeah, that's like one of the most beautiful things about sport is that people follow athletes that um, maybe they're inspired by their story, or they can relate to it, or um, it provides some entertainment. And I think that I've always struggled with like ski racing, and me ski racing feeling a little bit selfish and self-centered. And so the blog is a way for me to share, and hopefully some people can relate to maybe the struggles I've gone through, the lessons I've learned. And then the biggest thing is like I really, really want to show younger athletes, and really anybody, that if like I feel so strongly that we're all so much more capable than we think we are. And if me writing down like how far I've come, or my doubts and fears and how I got over them, is a way to show people that, then yeah, that's what I'm trying to do in my blog. Um, and hopefully it works sometimes, but I also really like writing, so it's nice therapy as well.
That's good. And I think you've either written or posted about, I think, work during the summer, probably
Yeah.
particularly when you were independent. What is what is what is work in the off season for you?
Yes. I work at a startup, and it's called Better Brain. It focuses on dementia prevention, and I work pretty much April to November, remotely and like part-time, full-time. Um, my team is absolutely amazing at letting me do this. So yeah, I have a job outside of ski racing that I really, really love, and feel so grateful that I can do both and that they allow that. But I do really think that it helps with my perspective, in both the summer and the winter. It's just nice to have to know, like, it gives me a huge appreciation for what I'm able to do all winter. I mean, I'm just so lucky to be able to do this, and I think working in the summer makes me realize that even more. And sometimes in the season, it's easy to get caught up in like the results and stuff, and I am maybe a little bit too competitive, so it's easy to be like, oh, I didn't have a good day, this stinks. But I try to remind myself as much as possible how lucky I really am. And yeah, working definitely highlights that, but I also love my job, so it feels like a
That's great.
win-win.
That's terrific. And I imagine it's a good break, like a mental break, to have a different pursuit and to think about things other than ski racing.
Yeah, yeah, no, it for sure is. I like to flex the noggin every once in a while, so no, it is. It's great.
That's good. It also, I think, shows, and I've talked about this with Tommy Biesmeyer in one of the early episodes about, like the financial challenges of ski racing, and,
Yeah.
and kind of, it's an expensive sport, particularly, and as you sort of climb the ladder to the elite ranks, it doesn't necessarily get a whole lot easier financially until
You've made it.
you've really made it. I've seen you in television commercials for the feed. What is that? And I know you were an independent athlete for a while. Like, what is the finance? You don't have to go into details, but the financial side of things look like for you, and like how is what do you have to do to make ends meet, as they say?
Yeah. It is a super important conversation to have. Um, yeah, I have done a number of things over the years. My very first way to make money for ski racing was to start a summer camp called Camp Mangan, which is still going on to this day. My family runs it. Um, but I think that like, and this is why so many ski racers go into business or startups, is because you kind of are forced to be entrepreneurial in how you go about sponsorships and off-season jobs and etc. I mean, some people, it totally, there's like a whole bag, a whole mixed bag of approaches, but I think that it is important to know that there are options for working while you're also competing. It's way more common in other sports. Like, as I said, a bunch of my siblings are rowers, and one of my older brother's classmates, was on the Olympic team for rowing and also had a full-time job year round. And I remember talking to him and like how he did it. And so there's different ways to balance it, but I think there are, again, more than one option, and that's important to know. I also think that social media is becoming like a really very powerful tool for athletes. So that's also very exciting. And yeah, I'm getting away from what your actual question was, but it is hard. Really, only if you're having consistent World Cup success are you making anything close to a living. But there are ways to make it feasible. And the way that I've approached it is that, like, especially when I was an independent athlete, of course, I had to ask people for help, which was really hard. But like, this is our only time in life to do this. And if that means me being a little couple years behind financially than some of my peers or my twin brother, for example, then that's something I'm willing to do. But it is a complicated conversation. But luckily, there's so many more resources now, and what Tommy is doing with World Cup Dreams is so amazing. And yeah, so there are more options than people realize, so that's good.
Yeah, that was episode 3, I think, or it was early on. I
Yeah.
had that conversation with Tommy in the Fresh Corduroy Podcast lifespan.
Yeah, and I also listened to your podcast with Sophie as well, and I think that she is doing a really good job with the commercial side as well, and bringing in more sponsors, which has then helped the athletes be more funded as well, and more athletes, and how can we like capture more of those people that are on the edge and help support them, like I obviously have been in the past.
Yeah, exactly. A rising tide, lifts all boats, as they
Yeah.
say, and I think that's what she's aiming to do. But it's still difficult, right? And I wanted to sort of illuminate that point, I guess, for the audience
Yeah. Yeah.
through you, to be candid. But for instance, you have. I'm assuming the hat that you're wearing. I think it says
It
Criterium.
actually isn't a sponsor, which is probably really bad of me. I attribute
Hey,
that to messing up the time for this meeting. Uh, this was from the Val
okay,
d'Isere World Cup.
got it.
Yeah.
I thought it had something to do with, well, the feed.
Yeah.
Thinking of that and how it's so intertwined with bike racing
Yeah. I do
and Criterium.
I do
Yeah.
have my huge bag of supplements from the feed here that they're an awesome sponsor. I could talk all day about fueling, and yeah, just that is as I think that having been an underdog for so long, like all of the little easy stuff that is in your control, I absolutely like love, because it feels so easy to, take the right supplements, eat right, do the right exercises, be strong. So yeah, the feed is an amazing sponsor.
Well, yeah. So what are those learnings? I had a competitive itch later in life, and I started bike racing, and I was like, I'm an old guy. I'm not gonna like, youth and endurance and power weren't going to be my strength. I had to like be smart
Yeah.
in the peloton. Or like, I'm just gonna like be draft people all the time until when I needed to like. So don't burn matches, as they say.
Yeah.
What are those sort of insights that you've learned and that you use? Obviously, fueling and eating right and minding your nutrition is one. But like, what are the other things that you do now that you might not have, 10 years ago?
Yes, that's a good question. I'd say a lot of them were learned through like error or mistakes or not learning or not doing them.
Yeah.
So, like the supplements, a huge one is, for example, beta alanine, and that buffers acidosis. And now, like when I first started doing Speed World Cup, like my legs would be burning at the end of the race, and it's like, okay, I have to address this. Like, how am I going to get stronger? How am I going to prevent the lactic acid? Another big one for me was my mindset. Like, I would get so excited for races and be running the race in my head so many times that my legs would feel like bricks when I was in the start gate because like my mind had thought that I'd done like 20 runs. So that's like on the mental side. And then there's so many little things that you can do, like the right warm up and the right food and like listening to the right music and knowing yourself, and consistency is a huge one. But I will say Kate Courtney, who is a mountain bike racer, has an awesome podcast where on Rich Roll where she talks about like her attention to detail getting so extreme that she was like gripping the sand so tightly that it was falling through her fingertips. And I think that that's such an amazing analogy. I actually read about this in my blog, for the little details in that we can control. Like it's important to do them all, but it's also important to know that like you're never going to have full control in especially a sport like ski racing. So it's like you can't do them expecting to get to control the outcome of the race. You do them and then you know that like there's always something out of your control, and kind of not worrying about that and being flexible, which goes more into the mindset aspect, has probably been the biggest learning lesson for me. And as someone who is like likes to have more things in my control, that's very important for ski racing, is like there's always going to be something out of your control. That's okay. Like do everything you can and then be okay with that.
Those are wise words to live by. I think
Yeah, probably
it
applies
doesn't.
to more than ski racing.
It does. I can tell you with experience. So, well, with that, I want to thank you for talking with me today. I've really enjoyed it, and I've learned a few things. I'll be ready for my next speed race.
Yeah. Sorry
when and
for
if
the
that
call
comes.
out.
No worries. I don't mind being told I'm wrong. There's no such thing, as I like to say. There's no one has a monopoly on good ideas.
Exactly. Very true.
All right. Well, thank you very much, and best of luck to you this weekend in your upcoming races.
Thank you.
Look forward to watching. I woke up yesterday morning as we were recording this to unfortunately see the Super G was canceled in Austria, but.
Hopefully we'll get it back on the schedule, so it'll just be later on this season. But
Got it.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. And I absolutely love listening to your podcast. So hopefully ski racing fans get a little insight into one speed skier's life on the road.
Fantastic. Well, thank you again.
Awesome.
That's my conversation with Tricia Mangan. What stands out to me is how clearly she sees her own path, not as the right way or the wrong way, but simply her way. From growing up on a small hill in Western New York to navigating college skiing, independently skiing on the World Cup circuit, and now competing in speed at the highest level, her story is a reminder that progress isn't linear and success isn't one size fits all. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you on the next episode of Fresh Corduroy.